There we go.
All right, greetings everyone. I'm Nate Angel, and I am the Virtual Buddy host for today's exciting virtually connecting session from the Creative Commons Summit being held right now in Toronto, Canada. And I am very honored to introduce a few folks who are on the ground at the summit, and I'm going to have them introduce themselves next. Terry, would you like to start and then pass the baton over to our guests?
Sure. Hi, my name's Terry Green. I'm a program manager at eCampus Ontario. And who's next?
Hi, everyone. My name's Claire Coulter, and I'm an instructional technologist at the University of Guelph.
Hi, I'm Jess Mitchell. I am a senior manager of research and design at the Inclusive Design Research Center, which is at OCAD University here in Toronto.
Over there.
Just right behind you guys. Okay. Well, I'm noting that we have an all-Canadian panel. Is that right?
I'm American.
Honorary Canadian, though.
Yeah.
So, you know, the first thing I always like to talk about in these sessions is how is the summit going for you all? Claire, do you have any highlights that you'd like to bring out, even though it's not over yet?
Yeah, I'm enjoying my experience. So I'm a first timer, so I bring that perspective. Yeah, I'm enjoying it. We just actually all left the same session which I enjoyed. I was helping facilitate, so I wasn't as much a participant, but sort of interrogate questions around, like, you know, what would we do if we wanted to break open? And then it's a way to sort of open up the conversation to sort of innovations that, you know, would not do that, I suppose. The best way to describe it. And so I just, you know, I thought it was a really interesting format.
Yeah, I attended this similar session at Open Ed last fall in Anaheim. It's a potent way to think about what we could do. Did any interesting ways to break the open education movement come out of it?
Just broke the breaking.
Just broke the breaking.
Just broke the breaking.
She liberated us from the liberating structure.
That's meta liberation.
It was totally
meta. So it was an interesting moment because we were talking in my particular group about how individuals really are the focus of what we are trying to do in open education, and how we sometimes lose, I think, the focus and the granularity on the individuals. We start to talk about frameworks and structures. We start to talk about textbooks, and all that's really important stuff to talk about. It's very abstract, and I had a fairly potent and large cup of coffee right before the session, so I was a little giddy. But what happened was interesting. We were having trouble keeping up with the session. It was a great liberating structure. I love the idea of starting with people's individual ideas and then going to a group idea. It's so important, especially for getting authentic and individual responses. It's a great way to get everybody's voice heard. What was troubling for me is I'm a miserable note taker, it turns out, and we had a Google Doc where we were supposed to be taking notes from the group. All the other groups were producing as you would expect. They had bulleted points. They had one per person at the table. And ours was a mess. We weren't the letter we were supposed to be in the order of tables. I chose a letter at random in a panic, and we were having great conversations, but they were really loose and quite open and unstructured. And what I liked about it was we had structure, and with that structure, we were able to step outside of it. So it wasn't a critique of the liberating structure. It was, I feel so liberated from this liberating structure. I'm gonna slightly break outside of it. But it was just a reminder, because the question we were answering was, how can we do this? How can we do things differently starting now? And part of it is understanding that everything we do is a design decision. Every decision we make is a design decision. And nothing's neutral. And that if we take that perspective and we think about the structure that we're presenting to a group of people and how we're asking them to participate in it, I think it gives us a different lens with which to approach open education and the movement and the questions that we were getting at in that session. So it was as much, it wasn't a critique at all, but it was as much a selfishness, like I'm not actually learning, I'm not able to keep up with this learning module because I'm bad at note taking and we were having some trouble with it, but it was fun. I thought
the thing itself was like double structured too, because you had the big pair share type of structure, but also the structure of revealing the questions one at a time.
Exactly.
So you were still kind of working with it.
Kind of was, yeah.
We had you in the box still.
There was a box, but what's interesting is also, I didn't say this, but when you do things like that and you put it up on the wall, people will turn their entire attention to the wall. Mm-hmm. And you look in that session and report back. And this is something that we all do. I do it too. And it's that moment where it's an opportunity to reflect and to say that, excuse me, the Canadian Prime Minister just showed up.
Come on in, Justin.
Oh, I heard he, hey, Justin, welcome to our little show. ICC button, by the way, we appreciate your support for open licensing. You're also really handsome, I might add.
From Peru so quickly.
You seem a little two-dimensional. But.
We give weight to things in our world. So we hear that something is from this particular journal and we're like, that's legit. Somebody works for this particular institution and they're like, oh. And we see writing on the wall, quite literally, projected images, and we turn and we give it a primacy. This is what we're supposed to be paying attention to. And then the group dutifully sort of reports back. It's us still in that structure. And I guess part of me with the cup of coffee in the group wanted to recap the structure.
You know, it makes me think of how we're getting a little audio echo now. Are you guys hearing that?
Yeah, there's some chatting going on.
Okay, it sounds like echo of me.
We're live. We're live.
Hey, we're at a live conference here. This is part of the virtually connecting experience.
Oh, we're doomed.
But you were saying, Jess, made me think that a lot of times as educators, we're very focused on the scaffolding of learning experiences, and we spend a lot of time structuring them and thinking about how they're going to happen, when so much of what can be really important about an experience and learning experiences in particular is the actual what happens on the ground in the moment.
And that's all about the humans. And that's all about the humans and the context that they bring in when they come into the room. Like, I loved that they got everybody at the point of entrance in the room. They said no more than 5 or 6 in a group. We all sorted ourselves. Like, that was very organized. It was very good. But yeah, we focus on the scaffolding. We focus on the framework. We focus on the CMS, on the technological tools. And I think if we reverse that focus and stop thinking about like a CMS that's going to solve all of our problems, we start from the human problems and we go in that way. It's maybe we'll come up with some different stuff.
I think with facilitation though, it's like a balance, right? You need like a little bit of, like you do need a little bit of structure, right? Because I think as humans, we're not always entirely comfortable with everything just being totally open, right? So there's like structure and then like room for emergence, and like a good facilitation in my mind brings both of those things.
And that's exactly what this did. I didn't mean to hold hands there. That's exactly what this did. Because the structure was there, we were able to break out of the structure. And because we were in this sort of environment where everybody was having fun and it was fast paced and Rajiv was kind of keeping us on track in this fun way, we were able to feel comfortable doing that. You walk into a lecture hall, you're the student, there's the instructor, there's this power differential, and you get the structure that you're supposed to be working in. That has a pretty profound impact on the way that you're going to respond to it. And I think that would, that is absolutely correct. I call it sort of meaninglessly structured structurelessness. Like there's enough structure there that it's not a blank piece of paper and everybody makes up everything. But it's enough structure there, and it's the kind of structure that remains open so that you can step outside of it and do something slightly different or slightly creative that fits your group or that fits you a little bit better.
I think it's the word structure that we struggle with, hey? Like, so when I'm listening to you talk, I'm thinking like maybe it's just about being thoughtful.
Yeah.
maybe we should change words. Hey, that makes me go up a level in meta-ness and think about how the Creative Commons and open education movements themselves are a kind of, critique or structured unstructuring of some even more wide things going on in culture, like copyright and traditional educational forms. And I'm wondering how the vibe of the conference or the summit feels. Does it feel a little bit like a disruption in something broader, or how does it feel to you guys on the ground?
Well, what you just said reminded me of a tweet that Ethan Senek sent out just before the summit. He was referencing an article that was in the Chronicle of Higher Ed talking about the textbook and how the textbook was sort of perpetuating these cycles of racism and exclusion and inequities and all of these things. And putting context to some of that is really, really helpful. The vibe that I've gotten here is it's let's look at the edges. Let's look at where it's not happening. We've created such a wellspring of people who get the sort of fundamentals, the foundation of what it means to be open. What do we do with that now? And I think that there are tremendous opportunities. There's a lot of chatter about open and about sharing and taking, not just taking, which is really kind of exciting and refreshing. And I know the Open Education Resource Bunch is struggling with this and trying to figure out how to describe what the values are. And any community struggles with this stuff, but I think that we're in a position to really take on some of those tough questions.
I would just add to that, and I agree with Jess's vibe comment, but one of the things I would say more, right? Like one of the things that I find with any sort of community like this, right? Like is that, sometimes we forget to ask those critical questions.
Yes.
And I think that some of those conversations have started, and I've certainly, that's not new, but more, I'd like to see more of that so that we're not just navel gazing,
So I said I wanted to tell Terry something, and I genuinely did.
Here's your chance.
An exciting thing happened here that I think is a big moment, Nate, and I think it's something that we should call out. There are a couple of sessions, thank you so much. There are a couple of sessions at the summit this year that have been about Indigenous knowledge and about traditional knowledge and about decolonizing knowledge, about sort of addressing some of the nuances and some of the challenges that come up with what it means to share traditional knowledge and the notion that not everything should be shared. So I am really feeling I'm very excited about this because I think that this conversation needed to happen. I feel like a nut got cracked. Something started here and it can't go back in, and it shouldn't. And we're going to continue to have these conversations. There was a session yesterday, a panel around Indigenous knowledge and traditional knowledge and how to handle sharing and talk about some of the intricacies there. And the room was packed. I mean, it was just stuffed. And there was not enough time. It could have been double the time. I mean, there's not enough time for any of these conversations. I'm really excited about that one because I feel as though that's that edge case that's going to push us outside of maybe some traditional ways of thinking about, North American, white, European knowledge and how we handle it and how we publish it and how we put it in museums. And there's an opportunity for learning some cool stuff there. I wanted to tell you about that. I just did. Appreciate it.
Did you want to speak to that at all, Terry, since you've been addressed so directly?
Oh, I don't know how to respond to that. But I feel like just the general question, the vibe here is a little bit of celebrating radicalness.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
It's been cool. I've enjoyed it. Even just generally the way people dress at this conference compared to most conferences you go to is a lot more fun. There's a lot more cool things to read on shirts and stuff. I've been trying to just wander around and not navel gaze, but people watch.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
It's a cool vibe here. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I have a colleague who's here, friend, I don't know, somebody I know, who is very new to Creative Commons, didn't really know what Creative Commons was before the summit, but knows very deeply about openness, about issues of equity and inclusion and diversity. And it's been cool to see it through her eyes too. She was sort of starry-eyed yesterday. She was like, wow, this is such an international conference. I mean, people on panels with accents and clearly aren't native English speakers. Like, it was a big deal. And it's just, it reinforces that representation matters point, right? And that being radical, that having no manels, whatever they're called.
I was just going to say, well, at least we have, a 50-50 gender split here today.
They didn't do it this year, but this summit was at this hotel at this time in the same place last year. And they could have asked it again and it would have been the same response. How many people are here from outside of Canada? And it was just last year. And I'm sure the response would have been the same. And then they also, both years, did the welcome and the acknowledgement that we're on Indigenous lands.
God, that was so powerful.
All those people did experience that probably for the first time.
Exactly. So, and when I moved to Canada, that really struck me, the land acknowledgements. So an elder from the Ojibwe tribe, was it?
She was Ojibwe.
Yeah. Did not a land acknowledgement. Ryan did the land acknowledgement, and then she did the water and earth sort of respectful acknowledgement. And she led an entire room full of people in unison, turning on the cardinal directions and making little clicking noises. Like, it was something. It was so beautiful. I mean, it was like that moment where she wanted to impress upon us that we all live on one earth, and we are all one people. And it was perhaps like, it was kind of like when you touch somebody, you can have an impact on them in a different way than if you just talk at them. It was touching everybody there and moving them to the east and the west and the south and the north and talking about water. It was so powerful. Maybe it was just...
No, it was great. I threw myself out of the power because I forgot which way north was. I turned the wrong way, the only one. Like, is everyone else wrong? No.
I saw a lot of people looking around to see which way was east, but it was a little group up there. Yeah. Everybody was basically.
Let's remember that north is also a moving target, right? Creeping toward Russia. It's closer to the North Pole right now than I think it's ever been.
Oh, wow.
I just read the magnetic north. So Claire, I'm wondering, in your work at Guelph, are there already things that you've that you've experienced at the summit that you feel like you'll be taking back to your daily work?
I'm a part of a task force at the University of Guelph, specifically looking at open education, OER, affordable course content. So I think certainly there are some things that I will take back, but mainly it's just momentum, right? Like it's like you're re-energizing yourself to do more, right? Because it can sometimes be exhausting work. So for me, I think it's just definitely the energy from the people and the sessions and all of those good things for sure.
It's cool to see, like, you go to Open Ed maybe and you have that same connection, but here you see people from such broad backgrounds, radio, arts, everything. Truly. It's not just thinking about education, so you can make broader connections.
Glam.
Yeah. And just people from
what does GLAM stand for?
Galleries, libraries, and museum, archives and museums.
and museum. A?
It's the best acronym.
It's really nice.
It's almost as good as STEAM, another one of my favorite acronyms.
A good one.
I think not to go totally backwards, but listening to the conversation that just happened, and just to further answer your question, I think I was fortunate enough to attend OpenCon last November in Berlin, and then this conference here now, and sort of that one of the attendees at OpenCon sort of was a provocation, invitation to the room to decolonize our minds, and it is a mindset, and I think so. Taking that back, I feel like this community and these types of events, it's easy to be stuck in your context, right? Like, so you go back to the university, well, if we're doing that work locally, what does that look like locally? And that's important, but then to always be sort of having that reminder to be outward and looking outward and inviting other people in also, I think definitely for me is something that always resonates.
I got a huge high and a huge encouragement of inspiration from Chris Borg's keynote this morning. She must have named over 100 people in that keynote, and she was off the wall giving attribution to people who are all over this space and beyond and doing cool stuff. And God, what a beautiful demonstration. It's like the see one, do one, hear one. I saw one do one, right?
There's a generosity.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
So many things I wanted to check out after.
I know. I was like, oh my God, I can't capture all this. I need her slides.
She's the MIT Libraries
Director of MIT's libraries. Yeah.
Right. So that's all really inspiring, and of course I'm deeply sorry that I'm not there to experience it directly. I'm wondering if we could somehow recreate that experience for anyone who happens to watch this little event that we're having here. For one thing, I noticed that we don't have anything written on our walls, so we're not distracting folks with that kind of information. What could we do so that people could see it here in this session? Just in using Jess's terms now, the do one, see one.
I don't know.
That's tough. This question.
How about this?
I know.
Would you call? I think I could definitely call out a couple of people that I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for them.
Okay, now we get it.
Sorry, I'm a little obtuse.
We needed a little more structure there, Nate.
Sorry, a little scaffolding.
We have about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
5 minutes. We're being structured again.
Yeah. No, we're just about to wrap it up.
So Tara Robertson has come up in a number of conversations. She's with Mozilla now. Used to be doing some work at UBC. Accessibility in BC. Worked with the folks at BC campus a bit. Their names are all coming up a ton, and Tara's just been a real inspiration for me and a real encouragement for me in figuring out how to push boundaries and work on D&I, they call it diversity and inclusion. So shout out to her. Of course, my director, Yuta Shravaranas, is traveling and isn't able to be here, but she was really sad that she wasn't going to be able to say hi to everybody and with everybody. I've met some of the folks who work on the CC team too, the Mary and Terrys, and they're awesome. And it's so cool to make that connection where you go from virtual to person.
Yeah.
It matters.
I'm the other Terry here.
Yeah.
That Terry here.
I don't know. You were always my Terry, but.
What about you, Claire?
My shout out, bad shout out because I don't know who's running it, but this thing over here, the humans of the comments, they're like, I thought I was just walking into a room and they're going to tell me some stuff, but they sat me down and interviewed me for like half an hour. And they're doing that for anybody who walks in. And I can't wait to follow up and see all this cool thing. It's just a radio interview, but there's going to be so much cool stuff coming up. But just hearing everybody's story of what brought them here today. And I ended up second guessing half the things I was saying because
as we do.
As we will.
I opened with, I work for eCampus Ontario, which is a nonprofit. It's not nonprofit.
So, I'm guessing that all those Humans at the Commons recordings will be available for folks to listen to.
So if you probably look up Humans of the Commons, it'll come up.
I don't know if this is a cop out, but I just want to say that instead of naming any one person, I think what I really strive to do at these things, and for those people who know me, they may not believe that I'm actually not that extroverted, but just like trying to make, look people in the eye and so I don't have any names, but I'm just trying to meet as many people as I can, and maybe take those connections away with me. We just met today. And even in the bathroom, I had this amazing conversation with this woman from Nairobi, you know what I mean? And so, yeah, I told her that our weather was pretty good for this time of year, and she was like, no, this is terrible. But yeah, so I don't know if I'm going to name any one person.
I think we should definitely specifically give a shout out to Julia Forsyth.
Because she's right there. Yeah, Julia.
Because she's nearby, for one thing.
Two famous Justin Trudeau and...
Oh yeah, there she is.
Oh, there she is. Greetings, Julia.
Nice to see you.
Okay, well, I know that you guys have a lot of human connections to make there on the ground, and so I don't want to keep interrupting your time. And I'm guessing that our next group of folks who are going to participate in virtually connecting are probably standing nearby.
I don't know where they went.
Yeah, you're stuck with us.
But we'll just leave. I'll leave my laptop so you can just stay on the same thing.
Are you sure you're okay with that?
I know where Regina works.
Great. Well, we're going to keep broadcasting live during the transition, so maybe let folks know that that's going to happen. There's been a really great conversation. I'm so glad to have finally met you, Claire, and to see you, Carrie, and Jess again.
Thanks for filling in.
Oh, thanks, Mahalo, for doing this. This is extraordinary. I think that this is such a cool idea, and every conference should have this. And I just love her work. I love her voice, and I love how she's making sure that voices are heard everywhere. And so huge kudos.
Well, you'd be hearing Maha's voice right now, except her voice is actually a little strained. So that's why I'm here instead.
But huge appreciation. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, to her and all the people, Autumn and others who make virtually connecting possible. Great. Well, thank you guys so much, and have a great rest of the summit.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Nate.
Bye.
You guys should grab lunch before you.
Yeah.
I'll stay and chat while we wait for Regina.
Do you want me to
Yeah.
go?
And make
No,
sure.
There might be a
Let's just be here
line
for
on CT scan anywhere.
Get her.
I'm looking for her and
So for anybody participating live, I just want to let you know that we're in a transition period right now.
Yeah.
And we're bringing in our next set of virtually connecting guests at the Creative Commons Summit. So if you'll just give us a couple minutes to get reorganized, we will have another show for you.
Way to go, Nate. Way to go.
Thanks, Nate.
No problem. And I see that we're joined by Helen DeWard. Welcome.
Hey.
So we're waiting for Regina and...
I'm looking for scan,
Oh, right.
and she's nowhere to be found. I'm scanning for scan.
Can't remember what she is.
Yay, hi, curly hair.
There's Regina. Come on down.
And Marcela is on her way. She's just finishing up some lunch. So kind of nabbed her from her group.
I guess we should allow her to feed
Yeah.
her mind and her soul.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
you don't want to leave these here because you just look at them.
No, please don't take them away. Take them away. Hey, Nate.
Hi, Regina. Welcome. We're just a note, we're still live running from the last session.
Pick it up, or do you want me to find you?
I'll go just grab some food and bring it here.
Awesome.
And I'm just going to let anybody who might be watching live know that Regina and Helen are on-site buddies for the next set of guests. Evelyn Heidel and Marcela Basch are going to be joining us very shortly. So stay tuned, and we'll be going in just a couple of minutes.
And this, we'll keep this chair for, maybe,
Just so that all three of you can be on the screen, and I'll hover in upside down.
Ooh, that's a great view. Yeah. Come in from every side if you can, Helen.
I'm just going to say, Nate, this is your first time doing the virtual buddy job.
It is. This is my first time. So you're in very apprentice hands here, but we'll try to make it work.
And you know that it's just very low key and very conversational. And
Oh,
we
sure.
really appreciate it, I think, because Maha's not been feeling well. So it's really nice that you stepped in and you're doing the help out here.
No problem. Really glad to do it. We just had a great conversation with Jess Mitchell and Claire Coulter, who you might have seen exiting right as you came in.
Yeah, we were on the other side.
Oh, so you heard the whole thing. Great.
Yes, yeah.
And Marcela has really didn't know what she agreed to when she agreed to come.
yes.
She said yes before even understanding what she was getting into. So we really appreciate that you're stepping in.
Thank you.
No problem. Well, why don't we actually start out by introducing ourselves to the folks that that might be watching this. And I'll just point out that this is being recorded live, and so it will be up for posterity later on. So raise your hand if there's a problem with that.
Okay.
I'm Nate Angel. I work at Hypothesis, which is the nonprofit organization that stewards open annotation practices and technologies. And I'm the virtual buddy for today's session for folks on the ground at the Creative Commons Summit in Toronto. And right now, I'd like to pass the baton over to Regina Gong, who's going to introduce herself and our guests on the ground there at the summit.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Regina Gong. I am a librarian and OER project manager at Lansing Community College in Michigan, USA. So, and I am here with Marcela.
Yes.
Yeah, Marcela, can you introduce yourself?
Absolutely. I'm Marcela Basch. I live in Buenos Aires, Argentina. I'm a journalist, and I have a website about collaborative economy and free culture and commons. That's called El Plan C, which means Plan C, C from collaboration. And I'm afraid I missed the part when you said, where are you now, Nate? Where are you?
Oh, I work with a nonprofit organization called Hypothesis.
But where are you?
Oh, where am I physically? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm in Portland, Oregon in the United States.
Okay. I had no idea which part of you were.
Yeah, sorry. There's so much, the virtually connecting community is so global and far flung that sometimes we forget to mention where we are because it's also online. So to speak.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I'm really excited to have you here, Marcela, because just as a personal side note, my background is in Latin American studies, and I focused actually on Argentina as one of my main focuses, although I've never visited. And so I'm really excited and happy to have someone from Argentina, if that's where you're originally from, I'm not sure, here to talk about open education and the Creative Commons Summit. Or other aspects of it that you might be interested in. I'm curious, can you help me and others that might be listening understand a little bit more about the kind of work you do that leads you to want to be at the Creative Commons Summit?
Yes, of course. As I told you, I'm a journalist, and I have a website which is focused in collaborative economy and all forms of collaborative culture and free culture and open culture, and that's where Creative Commons finds its place in my interests and the kind of stuff I'm interested in covering. So I was lucky enough to be here last year with a scholarship. I'm very grateful to Creative Commons, and then again this year, and I'm extra super happy. And yes, and I had a presentation this morning, very early session, which was a combined session. It was 3 short talks. I had one of the 3. The combined session was called Reclaiming Our Digital Selves. Yes, because we were 3 of us. The first of them was talking about free software and free software licenses. The second one, he was from Canada here, from Toronto. The second guy, Alexandros Nosias, was talking about data and how to reclaim control about our data, personal data. And then I came with my little presentation, which was called Emancipate Yourself from Mental Slavery, Let's Make Commons Sexy Again.
I love that title.
Thank you, which is mostly an application like, let's communicate it better so we could have more people on board.
Did you already have that?
That session, yes, it was this morning.
Oh, this morning. Okay.
Oh,
it was early.
So early. Yes,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It was so early. I didn't get Professor Schlesinger that schedule. But it was very nice. So to answer your question, yes, I'm basically interested in all of the whole range, the big umbrella of open and collaborative movement. And I think it's great to be here because you can get to get a nice look, global look about what's happening with the open and collaborative movement globally, which is not one movement. That's exactly the point. It's a bunch of different movements with some overlapping and not, intersecting and not. And I'm very excited because this time I've heard for the first time a concept that I don't know if you had heard before,
what is
Regina, which is Big Open. Heard about
yes, yeah.
Well, I just haven't. I heard it for the first time yesterday in the sessions, in the opening sessions, I think. And I think it's a great concept.
Could you define it for folks who don't know?
Well, it's basically try to build this kind of net of organizations working for open, where you can work together with people who are not exactly doing the same advocacy or goals that you have, but they're similar. So open science people and open access
data.
people, open data, and yes, and
government
could collaborate. And particularly yesterday we had a very interesting discussion following the Catherine Maher's keynote. She was the first keynoter, and she's the CEO, I guess, of Wikimedia.
Yeah, executive director of Wikimedia. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, executive director, and she was great. And after that, she discussed about this big open idea with Ryan Merkley, who's the CEO of Creative Commons, and Mark, what's his name, Grossman or something? From Mozilla Foundation. I'm sorry that I don't really get his last name. So it was a very interesting discussion about how these three different organizations could collaborate in the big open.
Yeah, and there's so many organizations, like you say, who have different focuses, but are actually come together around the idea of openness in one form or another.
Exactly.
Do you know, one thing that we were talking about in the previous session was the kind of vibe, the culture that you feel there at the summit. And the previous guests were talking a little bit about how international it seems. And since you yourself are not a North American, at least, where so much of our focus often lies for those of us who are stuck in North America, how do you feel like the vibe of the summit is?
Well, this is my second time to attend the CC Summit. Last year it was here in Toronto, and I noticed that, as a first timer last year, it was like, because English is not my first language, and so
Which is your first language?
I'm from the Philippines, so
okay,
it's Filipino.
I haven't got that the first time because English is not my first language.
Yes, and so it really made the experience richer for me, because I got to meet all these folks from Africa, from Asia, from Middle East, Europe, Asia, and all doing great work around open. I've met a lot of affiliates, CC from, the CC affiliates, and, really learned a lot from what they're doing, in their own country. So, and it's the same way this year too. It's much more international, much more intentional in terms of being inclusive, in terms of being more open, to a lot of diverse voices and perspectives. I don't know, I tweeted about that yesterday. Ryan Merkley was saying 0 all-male panels.
Yeah, and I don't know if you remember that, but that's last year. He said the same.
Yes, because last year, Nate, all the keynote speakers were women.
And I think maybe this year also.
Yes, yeah. And so this year, though, I feel it has come full circle, because last year we were just, you know, they just launched the platform, right? And then now, a year later, after that, you know, reorganization of Creative Commons, a lot of work. I mean, certainly you're in the Open Ed platform, Nate, and you've done a lot, you know, in terms of our goals and what we want to work on in terms of that platform. And so to come to this year CC Summit with the work that we've done from just the last maybe 10 months, 11 months, I don't know, not quite a year, it's less than a year. It really is, you know, I feel like we've accomplished something. And you know, personally too, last year they just launched the CC certificate, you know, like announced is going to be beta, and I am part of the beta tester, and I just got my certificate.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And it was really, I mean, so yesterday I was in the panel, you know, with my other cohort who were taking the CC certificate for librarians and educators. And David Wiley was in that panel too. And it was really well attended because there's a lot of interest among educators and librarians to take that course. And so we provided our experiences, our challenges in taking the course, and also kind of the face to like, you know, to the people who might want to take the course, kind of like good advocates, you know, champions for everyone to take the CC certificate. And so, yeah.
Marcela, did the idea of the certificates resonate with you? I'm not sure if they have any focused on the journalism area yet.
You mean CC?
Yeah, the CC certificate?
No, I don't think so, but...
there's going to be a track for government, and I think that's forthcoming, but that's mostly for those like government policy around open, and then the galleries, libraries, and museum track, or the GLAM track, that's forthcoming too.
Yes. Anyway, I'm not here. I mean, I'm not getting near CC because I'm trying to apply the licenses to journalism. It's maybe the contrary. I'm trying to apply journalism to this as a field. Okay, I want to be the voice of the field, if you want. In my country, I think this field is underrepresented in the press, especially in Spanish. So it's very hard to read about collaborative movement in Spanish. You really don't have much. You have, of course, but it's not that easy. So I'm covering here, right? I'm writing my stuff, and I'm tweeting, and I'm trying to connect with people. And also in Buenos Aires, I co-produce and co-program our little Comunes Festival, which is a meeting about commons, exactly. So yes, I'm also like trying to learn good practices. I'm maybe thinking about who would be a good speaker that we could maybe invite. So I'm like also working on that, because yes, we try to replicate in a different scale a big meeting about the commons in Buenos Aires.
It's great.
Interesting. And so, Marcela, part of your goal then is to kind of expose things that are going on in the open movement to wider audiences, especially in Spanish language, as you say?
Exactly. That's what I say.
Yeah.
That's my goal, to raise awareness, to show all these different alternative movements that are going on, and that are going on globally. And globally doesn't mean that the same globally, but they are diverse globally.
I don't know if you've met Claudio.
I know Claudio.
Ruiz.
Yes. Actually, he was invited as a speaker in Comunes last year.
Oh, great!
Yeah, he was great. He was absolutely great. He talked about internet as a common. Yes, he was amazing. He was great. He's from Chile, so yes, Chile. I know him.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So quizás hablemos en español, ¿no? Porque Virginia, tú también hablas español, ¿sí?
Yeah.
un poco.
Yeah.
A mí me encantaría hacer esto en español porque si no es un problema para vos, Regina, o para Helen, me parece interesante que todas las iniciativas buenas como Virtually Connecting, me parece que parte de la democratización que estamos todos buscando está también en la traducción. I'm going to say it in English. I think that part of democratizing and opening it's also in translation. I mean,
Yes.
and Spanish is not an underserved language
Yeah.
in some way because it's the third language most spoken in the world. But in some other ways, of course, it is an underserved language if you compare it with English. So for me, it's almost a political act to tweet in Spanish about the summit.
Yes.
I'm not the only person speaking Spanish here. We are like, I don't know, 20, 30 people from South America here. So we're a bunch of people speaking Spanish, but we're not that many people producing social media live about the summit. So I feel like a kind of duty that I would cover, and I would cover in Spanish specifically.
That's great.
I think it's important. So me encanta poder hacer parte de esto también en español, me parece muy bueno.
Yeah, and interesting, Marcela, because we were just, and I think Jess talked about it, because we were in the same session, the how to destroy the open movement. And one idea by which you can destroy the open movement is to just create materials in English. And not just create, but maybe, why are we just creating and speaking English just because it's the universal language?
I really wanted to attend that session. I missed it, but it's interesting to hear from you what you've seen there.
Yes, and certainly with the CC certificates, there's this plan and advocacy around having the CC certificates translated and made available in different languages. And there's this working group that's doing that, because why would we restrict it to just English language when it's worldwide? We would want to create that capacity for other people to be certified in whatever region in the world they are in their own language.
So this is so global.
Going
back to Nate's question about how we feel we're not from North America, and this is really amazing because when you come from a perfect country, politically speaking, and so you are, television and movies and everything is coming from North America or from Europe. Stop. That's it. So for me, get to meet Regina or get to meet last evening, I met a lady from Kyrgyzstan and another one from Iraq, and they were all telling our experiences about campaigning for copyright or for whatever they were campaigning, open education, open access. Wow, so amazing, right? It's really, really, really a global audience.
Yeah, and the way you work in the open is so different from the way we work in the open here. Because the social structure, the government is much more permissive of working in the open as opposed to other countries where it might not. And so that speaks to what Chris Berg was saying. Sometimes openness is dangerous, or working in the open is dangerous. We can, just think about Basel, Basel's case, right? So,
I've actually been in this conversation and the one earlier. It's made me think a lot of times, since North America is so much a part of the center of a lot of different kinds of activity, economic and educational and otherwise, and we focus a lot of our attention on, doing things at the center and then trying to spread them out to the periphery. But it seems to me that it's actually the reverse is maybe what this community is doing now and really needs to be done. And that's focus on the periphery and support activity there that then actually filters back to the center and makes changes in the center that are needed and valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. It's. I think it's an important challenge, but I think it's good what Creative Commons is doing with the scholarship program, because they allow to have here some real diversity. Of course, you have more people from Canada and the States. That's obvious, but I think it's a good work what they do about diversity with the scholarship program.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to translation, for example, I mean, rather than automatically assuming that things should be produced in English first and then translated, maybe we should do the reverse, right? And produce in other languages and think about maybe translating to English.
Yes, also the summit. I remember last year, I heard Brian Markley said, like, well, gratitude to all the people who are translating in their heads because English is not their language. And he repeated this year. And I thought, oh, thank you very much. But then everyone's speaking so fast. And it's really hard. It's really hard thing to do. And I had to make my session this morning very early. And gosh, it was hard to find the words. And then I think we are all doing an extra effort here with non-speaking, non-native speaking people. And yes, I don't know how to fix that, actually.
It is tiring to conduct your day in another language that's not your native tongue, for sure.
And I think it's another opportunity for virtually connecting to bring other languages, other voices to the conversation. And please be welcome to speak in the language of your choice, because the people who will hear and listen will use the technology to do the translations. And I think let's take that barrier away from the conversation, if we can.
Ok, podemos hablar en español y también podrías hablar en filipino.
O quizás en español también, porque hablan español en los filipinos.
No sé, pero tampoco vamos a discriminar a la lengua filipina, ¿no?
No sé si Helen habla español también.
Do you speak? No. Petit français.
Okay.
And Fries.
Oh.
From the north of Holland.
Oh.
Wow. On peut essayer le français?
Sí.
Entonces, Marcela, si puede decir sobre en español a la audiencia mundial, ¿qué es? ¿Qué es en español que es importante? A ver.
¿Qué es importante del Summit de Creative Commons? Bueno, yo para mi interés, yo no soy una persona enfocada en los temas técnicos de copyright y de licencias, sino que soy una periodista interesada en el movimiento colaborativo y abierto de manera global. Entonces, para mí está resultando muy interesante esta perspectiva del Big Open, de la gran apertura, del gran movimiento abierto que permite reunir o que permite encontrar una base común para trabajar, para que distintos movimientos que trabajan con la premisa de lo abierto y lo colaborativo puedan trabajar juntos en su diversidad. A mí me parece que eso es importante. Y también en lo personal me impactó mucho, me inspiró mucho la keynote de ayer de Catherine Mecher de Wikimedia, porque trajo un tema que yo había planteado aquí en el CC Summit del año pasado, en mi sesión del año pasado, que es cómo hacer sostenible el trabajo por el Commons. Cómo hacer sostenible el trabajo voluntario, el trabajo sin fines de lucro. Catherine Mecher habló de cómo podían llegar a sentirse desde Wikimedia explotados por YouTube, ¿no? Ese caso, y cómo tenían que pensar, cómo tenemos todos que pensar en nuevos esquemas de reciprocidad y nuevos esquemas para cuidar y compartir responsablemente el valor que creamos colectivamente. Entonces, me pareció muy interesante que un tema que nosotros en Argentina discutimos hace rato, que es la sustentabilidad de los movimientos colaborativos, que no pueden vivir solamente de la buena voluntad y el esfuerzo extra de los voluntarios, porque eso sería un movimiento de privilegiados, de personas privilegiadas que tienen tiempo extra y que pueden dedicarlo, ¿no?
Lo mismo en los Estados Unidos.
Entonces, esa es una discusión que en Argentina tenemos siempre muy presente, cómo hacer que estos movimientos sean sustentables de alguna manera, no con fines de lucro, sino sustentables. Y me pareció interesante cómo Catherine trajo ese mismo tema, más bien diciendo no ser explotados por las corporaciones, que ese commons que creamos entre todos no sea explotado por una corporación que va a sacarle dinero, que es una una de las grandes discusiones del software libre de todos estos años. Are you following me, Nate? Are you okay?
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's so surprising that I can understand what she says because actually Filipino we have a lot of Spanish words.
Puedes decirlo en español.
Yes, yes. So, yeah.
Gracias al colonismo, ¿no?
Yeah, yo comprendo.
Sí,
Yeah.
gracias al colonialismo español.
Yeah.
Sí. Okay. Son todos interiores. I should be leaving you.
Yes.
If you don't mind, it's been absolutely a pleasure to share with you.
Gracias.
Gracias a ustedes, and I'll be back to you to talk more about virtually connecting and what could we do in Buenos Aires with that.
Yeah.
Okay, later.
We really appreciate your joining us today, and for that also shifting the language over to Spanish for a little while. That was really
Pleasure. It's been my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you
very much, Nate.
Thank you, Regina and Helen also. And we will be signing off from the live session now.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
There will be more virtually connecting sessions from the Creative Commons Summit coming up. And you can find them most easily by visiting virtuallyconnecting.org or at vconnecting on Twitter is the easiest way to find the schedule and sign up to participate. Goodbye.